I got to even throw the Leafs in there now with some of the moves they made, which we'll get into a little bit later. I really like what the Leafs did at the deadline. But we're going to go ahead and get right into that, Garth. It's time for our third period segment, which is about trade talk. We have two segments here. One is really massive. The other one's kind of just like much shorter. So we're going to start with this one. This massive three-team trade, which involved the Toronto Maple Leafs, the St. Louis Blues, and the Minnesota Wild. It started with O'Reilly being traded to the Wild for Josh Pilar, and then he was then flipped again to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for a fourth-round pick in 2025. We all know what O'Reilly's MO is. He's a defensive first center. He's a Selke winner. He's a guy that has consistently finished high in Selke voting, even if he's only won it once. Excellent face-off guy, career around 52% face-offs. But you have to remember, Garth, that's weighed down heavily by his first couple years in the league. You're talking the past 5 years. This is a guy that is more like a 55 to 60% face-off winner. Conn Smythe winners, playoff MVP for the Blues back when they beat the Boston Bruins in the finals. The Leafs also got Noel Acciari, who should probably go on their fourth line, and they also got back Pilar as well from the Blues. And they gave up Mikhail Abramov, Adam Gaudette, a 2023 first, Ottawa's third rounder in 2023, and a second rounder in 2024. I'll start this one here off, Garth. I really love what the Leafs did here. Getting in, two centers. What have we always said is one of the biggest keys in the playoffs, right? Center depth. I think it's at least as important as good goaltending, if not more, because first of all, center is the most important position at hockey. If you have franchise centers, I mean, think of guys like Crosby, your guy Stamkos, McDavid, you can score on anybody. And when we get to the playoffs, toughness is important. It has a place, but this is where talent really starts to shine through. You need guys that can put the puck in the back of the net. And, I think, first of all, you have Matthews. We all know what he can do. Okay, maybe he hasn't exactly been what we thought he would be this year. But, he's still a guy that'll probably score 35, 40 goals, and that's considered a down year by his standards. You still have Marner there. You still have Nylander. And then you add in Ryan O'Reilly to that center core. You get, Noah Acciari on your bottom six. John Tavares is still there as well. Once again, Garth, this is the thing I always say with the Leafs. It's never been a question about talent. It's their mentality. Well, they got a guy in Ryan O'Reilly, Garth, that has the perfect mentality. I mean, this is a guy that has shown he can, be a playoff-level MVP, winning the Conn Smythe consistently in the playoffs. He was, with the Avalanche for quite a while when they were making the playoffs here and there. Obviously, he's been with the Blues the past few seasons, and they've been consistently competitive. And I will say, Garth, I think we called this last week. We said the Blues were waving the white flag on the year, and what do you know? Just a couple days later, O'Reilly is shipped out, and he ends up with the Maple Leafs. We'll see what happens with the Blues rebuild. I think they did the right thing trading these guys. Don't know if they quite got enough back, in my opinion, but that's a question for another day. But for the Leafs, I really like what they did. Getting some depth. That's what they've always kind of lacked in the past few seasons. They've had the superstar talent. It's just been a question of secondary scoring, defense, and obviously goaltending. So what are your thoughts on O'Reilly getting traded to the Maple Leafs?
Well, it definitely is kind of the final white flag thrown in that the Blues aren't rebuilt. And they've got some young pieces there that I really like Jordan Kyrou, to start building around. But I think it'll be a little bit before they're, a top contender there in the Western Conference again. And then secondly, what a deal by the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you land Ryan O'Reilly, like you said, one of the best defensive-minded centers in the NHL, a guy with a ton of playoff experience, known really well for being a good leader, locker room presence, exactly what a team who can't get over the hump in postseason play needs, in my opinion. And then, like you said, what a forward group the Toronto Maple Leafs have, and it pains me to say it because it's basically like a 99% chance that that's going to be our first-round matchup. It really just comes down to who's going to finish as second seed, who's going to finish as third, and have home ice advantage. Hopefully us, but who knows? And then, the other thing, too, that I noticed with this trade, Noah, is the fact that, at least for me personally, I don't know how much attention people were paying to this, but a lot of people were saying that, like, Ryan O'Reilly was injured. He was kind of, like, beat up, not 100%. He goes to Toronto and he looks 100% right away. Like the dude's out on the ice going full bore. He's enjoying
Mhm.
himself. He's joking around. He's spraying BioSteel instead of water on himself by mistake because he's not used to how like the Maple Leafs color code and lay out their bottles on the bench. So I think that was kind of just a ploy there by the Blues because they were dead set on dealing this guy. And instead of just coming out and saying that because of how hockey is, they kind of like to keep things, their cards close to their chest until they actually deal them. I think that that's really what that was, and not so much that this guy actually wasn't 100%. Um, but yeah, what a 4 year. No, you listed off a lot of guys there: Marner, Bunting, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, and then you add in Ryan O'Reilly, Acciari. They just have so much scoring depth on this team now. And, I didn't think that this is a team that was going to make a huge move like this because much like my Tampa Bay Lightning, they aren't exactly like a
Mhm.
huge surplus of uh, cap space and capital to try and make a move like that. And all they got to give up is a fourth. So,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I think they did a hell of a job, made out really, really well in this one. I'm not looking forward to facing them. I just hope we have home ice because, in my opinion, we're going to need it. Don't get me wrong. I've got faith in my Tampa Bay Lightning. I've seen this team do a lot, but I can't underestimate the competition. This Maple Leafs team is really, really good, and I think that their goaltending has been good enough this season. I think that was their one question mark. So, they're
Mhm.
going to be a tough outcome postseason for anybody.
I think a key for the Leafs, Garth, they need to get Matt Murray and Jake Muzzin back healthy because, like we said, that's kind of their mo is when they get to the playoffs they struggle defending and goaltending wise. So if they can get those guys back, that would really help. But yeah, Garth, I'm looking at their cap space, and like you said, this is ridiculous. They have no cap space at all. They have 6.3 million on LTIR, so they're almost at 89 million in cap, and yet, like you said, they were still able to get it done. This team, it's just ridiculous how much talent they have. I mean, I'm kind of at the point, Garth, where like if they don't get out of the first round this year, like my God, this is the year to do it. You got Nylander, Marner, Matthews, who, like I said, maybe having a down year by his standards, but former 60 goal scorer, we know what he can do. Tavares, his contract is terrible, so I think people kind of underrate him a bit. He's still point per game this year. I didn't even mention Bunting, who you brought up. He's a pretty
He was
solid,
really good. He was a guy who stood out to me last year when
mhm.
we played them.
They got, Robbie on the blue line. I guess, just my main question is, what are Samsonov or Murray going to do in the playoffs? I'm not too sure about that. But, I do think if they do play your Lightning again, which, like you said, I think it's pretty much a guarantee. It's just a matter of who's going to have home ice. I think it'd be a lot tougher this year. I think they could beat you. I'm not going to say they will beat you because, never going to count you guys out on that one. But with how much talent, like, it's kind of like the Bucks got to stop somewhere, right? Like eventually you got to put up or shut up, get those excuses out of the way. And I think they got a great leader. I think that helps you with the that mentality thing we were talking about. This is a guy that's seen it all. He's a veteran, very good player, and like you said, I don't know what happened with St. Louis. Like they just fell off a cliff this year, and like you said, his mentality wasn't in the right place. I don't know how bad the injury was. I mean, clearly it wasn't too bad, because I heard it was going to go about a week or two longer than it did. And what do you know? He comes back, he's traded Maple Leafs. And then, I was looking up his stats, Garth. In his first two games of the Maple Leafs, he's won 76% of his faceoffs. So whatever the heck was, apparently bothering him doesn't seem to be affecting him too much because he's already making an impact. And I think he's a guy that any offense he gives you is a bonus. He's a guy out that you want to put out there for that big defensive zone face-off when the game is close. Make those defensive plays that you need to keep it a tight game, to keep a tight lead, if you will. Any goals he puts in or whatever is just a nice addition. But he's a defense-first guy, stud face-off winner. And like I said, I think that's crucial in the playoffs. Now, I will say, obviously, there was the thing last year where, the last four finalists, none of them were good face-off teams. But, like, at the same time, I think you can also admit it's very logical to say you would prefer your center to be a good face-off taker than a bad one. I mean, I just think
Yeah,
that's kind of obvious.
I think the thing with that too, Noah, that I noticed is like, yes, those last four teams as a team overall weren't the best in terms of face-off percentage, but each team had that one really dependable guy. Like I know for us, it's been Anthony Sorelli. Every postseason run, that dude is phenomenal. And I think that's kind of the same type. I don't want to say they're the same exact player, but they definitely have similar skill sets. So I think that he's kind of going to be that role for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going to win faceoffs. He's going to be a guy you can throw out there against the opposing team's top line and just make life miserable on them. Just make things really, really hard. And whenever you get an opposing team's top line kind of flustered, out of rhythm, off their game, that really helps. And that's the kind of game and kind of contributions you're going to get out of this guy.